Good morning, everyone. So, the psalm today is Psalm 100, which a lot of you may know. It has these kind of famous lines: "Enter his gates with thanksgiving, go into his courts with praise, give thanks to him and call upon his name. For the Lord is good; his mercy is everlasting, and his faithfulness endures from age to age." Chris Tomlin's got a song about it. Lots of people have songs about it, and um, I'm just kind of struck that by that theme that shows up again and again in the Psalms, shows up again and again throughout Scripture: to enter into the gates, to come to the temple, to come to the place where we worship. And there is this real need for us to worship. There's this real need for us to gather. I'd have gone through this. Of course, the big example that jumps out is the exile. It's the exile from Israel and the destruction of the temple. It wasn't just a few weeks or months then when the people were separated from their ability to worship the way that they knew God had called them to worship. Instead, they were separated from worship for years, decades, 70 years in Babylon, and that kind of tearing does something to a people. There is, especially the book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel starts, Ezekiel, who's meant to be a priest, comes to the moment of his ordination when he was supposed to start his service in the temple. And by the river Jordan, instead of being in the land of Israel, he's by the river of Kedar in Babylon. And there's a sorrow and a terror there. But what happened throughout the book is then he receives this vision of God, the vision that it's everything he would have imagined would have been going on in the temple is instead happening in his vision. And what he discovers is that God is not locked into the temple in Israel. There are cherubim and angels that carry that throne of God, and they carry it over the face of the whole earth. And the point in Ezekiel is that entry into the temple the destruction of the temple does not keep the people of God from entering into the temple. And that is a hugely significant thing. That our worship is not restricted to the form that we're given to worship in, right? So there's a lot kind of happening there. But the removal of our standard church services don't keep us from our faithfulness to God. And yet, even in Babylon, the thing that actually keeps the people of God going is their longing to return to that place. So the great sort of sin of the Babylonian exile is people who get comfortable in Babylon and say, this is pretty great. I don't have to struggle in this difficult land called Israel. I can just sort of plop down and I'll just live here in Babylon and everything's kind of good here. They've got really fast internet. The food is pretty nice. I don't have to leave my house. I just call somebody and they bring it there. Everything's sort of comfortable in the way I want it to be here in Babylon. But those who get comfortable in exile are the ones who lose the thread of faith. It's the ones who continue to yearn, who continue to long, even in their isolation, who continue to have this hunger to be back with the people of God. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. That longing, that desire to be a part of the flock that comes together and worships, it doesn't cancel the fact that we can be faithful even in strange circumstances. But at the same time, let's not get too comfortable here. Let's not pretend like our isolated life is how we were made to live. We're made for one another. We're made for fellowship. We're made for worship. My prayer and my hope for you today is that you're continuing to discover that in fresh ways. And let me just encourage you during this time, and I know it's hard, but find a new way to pray. Find a place to sit and embrace that silence Find a way to open yourself up to the presence of God where you are. Find the music on the internet, play it yourself, learn how to play guitar. I don't know. I don't whatever you're doing right now, bring worship into the place where you are. Because God is longing to find you and to pull you forward into the faithfulness that He has set for you. Friends, good to be with you, even in this reduced way. Go forth into the world, do God's good work that's been prepared for you. Um, be well, and we look forward to seeing you soon.